Greetings, everybody. Another day and looking at some more art. Another day to look at artwork. Another way, another day to transcend the survival states of mind and enter into higher levels of consciousness through art. Art is an archetypal language. It transcends politics and sociology. Sometimes it'll illustrate those aspects of our culture. But the art itself is always, true art always transcends the subject. And anyway, one of my favorite artists, the man I studied with, Antonio Salemme, a sculptor and a painter. His career spanned the 20th century nearly. He died in 1995 at the age of 102. He lived for 43 years in Manhattan, New York City, with a studio there. Spent time on 2 Guggenheim Fellowships in Paris, pre-World War II. And was patronized as a young artist and studied sculpture in Rome, pre-World War I, with Angelo Zanelli. Anyway, in the 60s, he started doing what he called environments. And these are terracotta sculptures. This is tabletop size. This is maybe 10 to 12 inches high at the most, this particular sculpture. And it's in terracotta. It could certainly be cast in bronze and ought to be. It would be lovely in bronze. And you could make a mold from this terracotta piece. But he wasn't being patronized. He didn't have a lot of people clamoring for his work, and he had escaped what he called the wars of Manhattan, which you can imagine what 1960s New York art scene was like, and especially for a classical modern sculptor like Antonio, sculptor and painter. But regardless, he wanted to sculpt, and he found he could do that with terracotta, and he could very inexpensively have it fired and have a beautiful piece in the process. And so he created a remarkable series of sculptures based out of that need for him to sculpt and his lack of support in the marketplace. Created these small sculptures that could be made large. The way the foundries are today, it could be made any size. And even imagine this in bronze, 6 feet high, in a park somewhere, or in your backyard if you happen to be one of those billionaires. It would be really stunning. Regardless, let's take a closer look. Say, now here you have this remarkable sculptor who spent his whole life in a very dedicated and disciplined fashion making art, with incredible background, by the way. He studied painting as a teenager with George L. Noyes, an American impressionist who had studied with Monet. And he studied sculpture, like I say, in Rome, pre-World War I. But I want you to get a sense of the directness of his expression here. And that's it. All the different textures, the spaces created in the terracotta, the lines here indicating a window, let's say, or something, just adds to the composition. And this line here, the back of the chair, drawn in to the clay directly. So this is kind of a relief here in a certain way, but it's more because it's definitely three-dimensional in the round. And you can see just his beautiful familiarity with all those decades of study of the human form. And now, and like I say, you get all this beautiful texture of the terracotta and so forth. Now, just look at the gesture of this figure. And now, he didn't have a model for this. He did this out of his head in sculpture. And look at the gesture, that kind of relaxed sitting body that is just such an original gesture. You could take that for granted. You could say, you know, I've seen that 1,000 times before, whatever. But it's just, man, it's such a beautiful gesture, and it comes out of his aesthetic astuteness and genius, you'd have to say. That just allows him to create that figure with that kind of, I don't know even how to describe it, the way it just kind of leans back a bit in that chair in such a beautiful, it's almost in motion in terms of that leaning back into the chair. And it's so evocative of some kind of, just of that, just of the situation. It lends a really high vibration to the work. And of course, that's who Antonio was. Here, you know, so where you're looking at this incredible expression of, I'll say it, sculptural genius, artistic genius, aesthetic mind, aesthetic expression, and just an extraordinary American classicist. I call him a modern classicist. You could also say he was a classical modernist. It really doesn't make a difference. It's work that is, it's visceral, it's in the moment, it's beautiful, and it's something that, man, I'd love to have it in my living room, to be able to just get that vibration from it whenever I wanted. It's a living, moving work of art that will live for terracotta. It's good for 1,000 years unless that atom bomb drops. I don't think the floods will even get it. Anyway, thanks for having a look with me, and have a great day.